This changes everything I thought I understood about the law. Because even the High Court, the most powerful legal body in the country, and has never answered the most basic question, who held sovereignty first? And that silence isn't just a gap in history, it's a choice, a decision to look away from invasion and treat it as if it never legally happened. For most of us growing up, we were taught that Australia became British territory because Captain Cook claimed it, that a flag was planted, a map was drawn, and somehow that made it lawful. But Reynolds makes it clear none of this followed international law at the time. No treaty, no declaration of war, no transfer of sovereignty. In fact, in 1788, British officials were warned not to engage in war with the Aboriginal people. Why? Because war would imply that Aboriginal people had sovereignty, and you can't conquer what you already pretend is empty. This is where it gets really uncomfortable. The Crown acted like it had full authority from the start, but legally it didn't. That authority was never gained through war, never negotiated through treaty, it was just asserted. And when Aboriginal resistance began, resistance like Pemulwuys, like the Kalkadoon Wars in Queensland, like the Wiradjuri campaigns led by Windradine, the colonial courts refused to treat them as acts of war. They were labelled crimes, not political resistance. So when those cases came before the courts, the judges had a problem. If they acknowledged that Aboriginal people were defending sovereign land, it would undermine the entire British claim to Australia. So instead they chose silence, and that silence carried forward from the early courts through federation and right up to the High Court in the 20th century. Even in Mabo in 1992, the court recognised native title, but carefully avoided the question of sovereignty. They said, the acquisition of sovereignty is not justiciable in this court, meaning we don't have the power to rule on how sovereignty was claimed. But Reynolds asks, if the courts can't ask that question, who can? And here's the thing, this isn't about giving everything back and starting again. It's about telling the truth about how we got here. It's about recognizing that what was taken without consent still matters. That acknowledging sovereignty doesn't undo the past, it changes how we walk into the future. Because if sovereignty was never lawfully taken, then everything built on that claim, the Constitution, the Parliament, the legal system, rests on a silence. Comment still unseated if this helps connect the dots. Next up, what if Australia wasn't founded by law, but by force and omission? And what does that mean for what comes next?